It was my son's 20th birthday approaching, and I decided to surprise him with his first car. I remember how his eyes lit up whenever he talked about having his own car, the freedom and the adventures it promised. So I turned to Craigslist, hoping to find a decent, affordable deal. After scrolling through numerous listings, my eyes settled on a Toyota Camry. It was older but claimed to be in great condition, and the price was surprisingly low. The seller, who introduced himself as Tom, assured me over the phone that it was a steal and in excellent condition. I was a bit skeptical, given the price, but Tom's reassurances over the phone calmed my nerves. He sounded genuine, and his explanation that he was moving out of state and needed a quick sale seemed reasonable. So I planned to visit him the next day to see the car. I drove out to the address he gave me, which was in a more remote part of town. The further I drove, the fewer houses I saw, and the more my unease grew. But the thought of my son's joyous reaction kept me going. As I pulled up to the address, I was confused. Instead of a house with a driveway, I found myself in front of a dilapidated building, surrounded by overgrown weeds. There was no sign of a Toyota Camry, just an old, rusty truck and a pile of car parts scattered around. I got out of my car, feeling a bit unsettled. The place looked abandoned, not like someone selling a car would live here. I knocked on the door, but there was no answer. The silence around was eerie. After a few minutes of waiting, I decided to call Tom. The phone rang, and to my surprise, it was picked up almost immediately. Tom's voice came through, a bit muffled, saying he was inside and to come around the back. I cautiously made my way around the building, my heart pounding in my chest. Something felt off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. The back of the house was as unkempt as the front, with old furniture and more car parts strewn about. As I reached the back door, it creaked open slightly. I pushed it further, revealing a dimly lit, cluttered room. The smell of mold and something else, something foul, hit me. Tom. I called out, my voice echoing slightly in the empty space. There was no answer, just the sound of my own breathing and the creak of the floorboards under my feet. I stepped further inside, my eyes adjusting to the dim light. The room was filled with old furniture, newspapers, and what looked like taxidermy animals. But then, I saw something that made my blood run cold. In the corner of the room, illuminated by a shaft of light from a broken window, was a figure. At first, I thought it was just another piece of taxidermy, but as I moved closer, the horrific truth dawned on me. It was a taxidermied human being. Panic surged through me. My first thought was to run, but my legs wouldn't move. My mind raced with questions. Who was this? What happened to them? Was Tom some kind of a maniac? The sound of a floorboard creaking behind me snapped me out of my trance. I didn't look back. I just ran. I dashed through the house, stumbling over debris, my only thought to get out. I burst out of the front door, gasping for air. The bright sunlight felt blinding after the darkness of the house. I didn't stop to think. I just ran to my car, got in, and locked the doors. My hands were shaking as I fumbled with the keys, trying to start the car. I kept glancing at the house, half expecting someone, or something, to come after me. The car finally roared to life, and I didn't waste a second. I drove away as fast as I could, not caring about anything but putting as much distance between myself and that house as possible. As I drove, the shock began to set in. What had I just witnessed? Was that really a human being in there? And Tom, what was his part in all this? I pulled over as soon as I reached a populated area, my hands still trembling. I called the police, my voice barely steady as I explained what I had seen. They told me to stay where I was, that they would send someone to meet me. The wait for the police felt like an eternity. Every sound made me jump, and I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting the worst. When the police finally arrived, I led them back to the house. With each mile, my anxiety grew. What if it was all just a figment of my imagination? What if there was no house, no taxidermied human being? But the house was there, just as decrepit and unsettling as before. The police entered cautiously, and after what felt like hours, they came back out. The look on their faces told me everything I needed to know. They confirmed my fears. The figure was indeed a taxidermied human being. The house was an abandoned property, and they had no record of anyone named Tom associated with it. The investigation continued for weeks, but I never heard from Tom again. The police told me it was likely a setup, a trap of some sort. I was lucky to have gotten out when I did. I never did buy my son a car from Craigslist after that. The experience left me shaken, a grim reminder that sometimes things that seem too good to be true usually are. Every time I think about that day, a chill runs down my spine, and I'm just grateful that I made it out to tell the tale.